He was making too much noise. The dog had to go. Those were the words my mother-in-law said to me over the phone while I was lying in a hospital bed, still groggy from surgery, trying to understand why my 9-year-old son was sobbing in the background. Max was gone. Our golden retriever, the dog we had raised from a puppy, the dog who slept at the foot of my son's bed every single night, the dog who was his best friend in the whole world. Gone. Given away to the neighbors down the street like he was an old piece of furniture nobody wanted anymore. And my husband had let it happen. I could hear my son crying through the phone, these horrible gut-wrenching sobs that made my surgical incision ache with a pain that had nothing to do with the stitches. I could hear my mother-in-law in the background, telling him to stop making such a fuss, that it was just a dog, that he would get over it. Just a dog. As if Max had not been part of our family for 6 years. As if he had not been there for every nightmare, every bad day at school, every moment when my son needed comfort and I was not available. As if he had not been the one constant source of unconditional love in my boy's life. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip out my 4 and drive home and get my son's dog back. But I was 3 days post-surgery, barely able to sit up on my own, trapped in that hospital bed while my family fell apart without me. "Put my son on the phone," I said, my voice shaking with barely contained rage. "Mommy." His voice was so small, so broken. "Mommy, Max is gone. Grandma took him to the Hendersons' house. She said we cannot have him anymore." "I know, baby. I know. I am so sorry. Can you come home and get him back? Please. Mommy. Please. He is probably so scared without me. He does not know the Hendersons. He wants to come home." My heart shattered into a million pieces. I was lying in a hospital bed, helpless, while my son's world crumbled around him. And there was nothing I could do about it. Not yet. "I will fix this," I promised him. "When I get home, I will fix everything. I promise." But even as I said the words, I had no idea how deep the damage really went. The dog was just the beginning. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Samantha Chen. I am 31 years old, and I have been married to my husband Ryan for 11 years. We met in high school, started dating in college, and got married the summer after graduation. We were so young, so in love, so sure that nothing could ever come between us. We have one child, a beautiful boy named Lucas who just turned 9. He has my dark hair and Ryan's green eyes, and he is the kindest, most sensitive soul you could ever meet. He feels everything deeply, whether it is joy or sadness or anything in between. He cries at sad movies and laughs until he cannot breathe at funny ones. He makes friends with every animal he meets and remembers the name of every dog in our neighborhood. Lucas was 3 years old when we got Max. We had talked about getting a dog for years, and when we finally found Max at a local rescue shelter, it was love at first sight. He was this fluffy golden retriever puppy with big brown eyes and the sweetest temperament. The moment Lucas saw him, he wrapped his little arms around that puppy and said, "This is my dog, Mommy. He is mine forever." And he was. Max and Lucas were inseparable from day one. They played together, napped together, watched cartoons together. Max waited by the door every day for Lucas to come home from school, his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. At night, Max curled up at the foot of Lucas's bed, and my son said he always felt safe because Max was protecting him from bad dreams. The bond between them was something special. I would watch them together, boy and dog, and marvel at the way they communicated without words. Lucas would come home from school in a bad mood, and Max would sense it immediately, pressing his warm body against Lucas's legs, licking his hands, refusing to leave his side until the darkness passed. Lucas would whisper secrets into Max's ear, things he was too embarrassed to tell me or Ryan, and Max would listen with those soulful brown eyes like he understood every word. They developed routines together. Every Saturday morning, Lucas would pour himself a bowl of cereal and sit on the floor next to Max's dog bed, sharing bites with his best friend while watching cartoons. Every afternoon, They would play fetch in the backyard until both of them were exhausted. Every night, Lucas would read Max a story before bed, turning the pages so Max could see the pictures, explaining the plot in serious tones like he was teaching a class. When Lucas was going through a hard time at school, being bullied by some older kids, Max was his comfort. Lucas would come home with tears in his eyes, refusing to tell me what was wrong, and go straight to his room where Max was waiting. I would hear him talking to the dog through the door, pouring out his heart, and Max would just listen without judgment or advice, offering nothing but unconditional presence. When Lucas had to get his tonsils out and was scared about the surgery, he told the nurse that he wished Max could come to the hospital with him. He made Ryan take a video of Max doing tricks and watched it over and over in the recovery room, laughing through his pain medication at his silly dog back home. When Ryan's father passed away and the whole family was grieving, Lucas held on to Max and told him all the things he was too sad to say to the rest of us. I found them together one night, Lucas crying into Max's fur, whispering, "I miss Grandpa so much. Do you think he can see us from heaven? Do you think he knows I love him?" Max was not just a pet. He was a member of our family. He was my son's best friend, his confidant, his protector. The thought of Lucas without Max was like imagining the sky without stars. It just did not make sense. But my mother-in-law, Helen, never saw it that way. Helen had disapproved of Max from the moment we brought him home. She thought dogs were dirty, smelly, and a waste of money. Every time she visited, she complained about dog hair on the furniture, about the smell of dog food in the kitchen, about the way Max would get excited and jump up to greet her. "That animal has no manners," she would say, pushing Max away with obvious disgust. "I do not understand why you keep him in the house like a family member. He is a dog. He belongs outside." I tried to explain that Max was trained, that he was gentle and well-behaved, that he was wonderful with Lucas. But Helen did not want to hear it. In her mind, dogs were animals that belonged in a yard or a kennel, not sharing living space with humans. The fact that we treated Max like part of the family was, to her, a sign that we had lost our minds. She was particularly bothered by how attached Lucas was to Max. She thought it was unhealthy for a child to be so bonded with an animal. She worried that Lucas was using Max as a substitute for human relationships, that he was becoming too dependent on the dog for emotional support. "He needs to make real friends," she told me once, her voice dripping with condescension. "Not spend all his time talking to a dog like it can understand him." "Max is not a substitute for friends," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Lucas has friends. But Max is important to him too. There is nothing wrong with that." Helen just shook her head and changed the subject. But I could see the disapproval in her eyes, the judgment she was silently passing on our parenting choices. Over the years, Helen's dislike of Max became a constant source of tension. She refused to visit if Max was in the house, so we had to put him in the backyard whenever she came over. She complained if we talked about Max too much, rolling her eyes when Lucas shared stories about what the dog had done that day. She made comments, little digs disguised as jokes, about how we spent more money on the dog than on proper things. I tried to let it go. I told myself that Helen was from a different generation, that she had grown up on a farm where animals were livestock, not family members. I made excuses for her behavior and tried to keep the peace for Ryan's sake. But deep down, I knew that Helen's problem was not really about Max. It was about control. She could not stand that there was something in our house that she did not approve of, something that brought Lucas joy in a way that had nothing to do with her. She saw Max as competition for her grandson's affection, and she resented every moment Lucas spent with that dog instead of with her. The surgery was scheduled for March. I had been having problems with my gallbladder for months, and the doctor finally decided it needed to come out. It was supposed to be a routine laparoscopic procedure, in and out in a day, back to normal within a week. But nothing went according to plan. There were complications during the surgery. The doctor found more damage than expected and had to switch to a more invasive procedure. Instead of being home the same day, I ended up spending 5 days in the hospital, connected to tubes and monitors, in too much pain to do anything but sleep. Ryan had to take care of Lucas by himself, which was not something he was used to. I handled most of the day-to-day parenting, the school drop-offs and pickups, the homework help, the bedtime routines. Ryan loved Lucas, but he was not always present in the ways that mattered. He worked long hours and often came home tired, content to let me handle the domestic responsibilities while he relaxed. When I went into the hospital, Ryan called his mother for help. Helen was thrilled. She had been waiting for an opportunity like this, a chance to step in and take over, to prove that she was needed, to have unfettered access to her grandson without me there to interfere. She moved into our guest room the day after my surgery. According to Ryan, she was incredibly helpful. She cooked meals, cleaned the house, made sure Lucas got to school on time. She was the perfect grandmother, swooping in to save the day while the incompetent mother was laid up in the hospital. But Lucas told me a different story. He called me every night from the hospital, and each call was worse than the last. Grandma would not let him watch his favorite shows. Grandma said his room was too messy and made him throw away things he wanted to keep. Grandma complained about Max constantly, saying the dog was too loud, too dirty, too much trouble. She does not like Max, Mommy, Lucas said, his voice worried. She keeps talking about how much easier things would be without him. I tried to reassure him. I told him that Grandma was just not used to dogs, that she would not do anything to Max, that everything would go back to normal when I got home. I believed it, too. I thought Helen was all talk, that she would never actually do anything to hurt Lucas. I was wrong. The call came on the third day. I had just woken up from a nap, still foggy from the pain medication, when my phone rang. It was Ryan. "Hey, how are you feeling?" he asked, his voice strange and tight. "Tired. Sore. Ready to come home. How is Lucas?" There was a pause. A long, uncomfortable pause that made my stomach drop. "Ryan, what is wrong?" "Look, before you get upset, I need you to know that my mom was just trying to help. She was not being malicious. She really thought she was doing the right thing." "Ryan, what happened?" Another pause. And then, she took Max to the Hendersons' house. The neighbors down the street. They have been wanting a dog, and Mom thought it would be a good solution. I could not speak. I could not breathe. The words did not make sense. They could not make sense. She gave away our dog? She gave away Lucas's dog. Sam, listen to me. Max was being a lot to handle. He kept barking whenever Mom tried to put him outside, and Lucas was getting upset, and it was just chaos here. Mom thought it would be easier if Max stayed somewhere else for a while. For a while? Ryan, she gave him to the neighbors. That is not for a while. That is forever. It does not have to be forever. We can talk to the Hendersons when you get home. We can explain that it was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? My voice was rising now, loud enough that a nurse poked her head into my room to check on me. Your mother gave away my son's dog without asking me, without asking Lucas, without any right to make that decision. That is not a misunderstanding. That is a betrayal. You are being dramatic. It is just a dog, Sam. Just a dog. He said it so easily, like it was nothing. Like Max was nothing. Like Lucas's heart was nothing. Put my son on the phone, I said. Now. And that is when I heard it. The sobbing in the background. The sound of my child's heart breaking while his father stood there making excuses for his mother. The next 2 days in the hospital were agony. Not just physical agony, though there was plenty of that. Emotional agony. Mental agony. The agony of being trapped somewhere I could not leave while my family fell apart without me. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Max's face, those trusting brown eyes, that wagging tail. I imagined him in a strange house with strangers, wondering where his family was, wondering why Lucas did not come to pet him goodnight. Dogs do not understand explanations. They just know when they have been abandoned. And Lucas, my poor baby. I imagined him lying in bed alone, reaching down to pet Max like he did every night, and finding nothing there. Just empty space where his best friend used to be. The thought made me physically sick. I called Lucas every few hours. Each conversation was heartbreaking. He told me how he had come home from school and Max was not there. How he had searched the whole house, calling Max's name, thinking the dog was playing hide and seek. How he had looked in all of Max's favorite spots, the sunny patch by the back door, the corner of the couch where he liked to nap, the space under Lucas's bed where Max sometimes hid during thunderstorms. How he had finally asked Grandma where Max was, and she had told him so casually that the dog was gone. She said Max was bothering her, Lucas said, his voice thick with tears. She said he was too loud and too messy and she could not concentrate with him around. So she called the Hendersons and they came and took him away. Did she ask you first? Did she give you a chance to say goodbye? No, Mommy. I was at school. When I came home, he was already gone. I did not even get to hug him one more time. I did not get to tell him I love him. What if he thinks I do not love him anymore? What if he thinks I wanted him to go away? Those words destroyed me. My 9-year-old son, worrying that his dog thought he did not love him anymore. This child who loved so deeply, so completely, being made to feel like he had somehow failed the creature he loved most. Max knows you love him, baby. He could never think otherwise. You have loved him every single day of his life. That does not just disappear. But I was not there, Mommy. I was not there when they took him. He probably looked for me. He probably wondered why I did not stop them. I wanted to reach through the phone and hold my son. I wanted to teleport home and fix everything. I wanted to undo the last 3 days and make different choices, stay home somehow, never let Helen through our front door. But I was stuck in that hospital bed, watching the hours tick by, counting down the minutes until I could go home and fix this disaster. The doctor finally discharged me on day 5. I was not fully recovered, still in significant pain, still supposed to be resting and taking it easy. But I did not care. I needed to get home. I needed to see my son. I needed to get his dog back. Ryan picked me up from the hospital. The drive home was tense and silent. He tried to make small talk, asking about my recovery, mentioning that his mother had made my favorite soup for when I got home. I did not respond to any of it. When we pulled into the driveway, I saw Lucas waiting at the front door. His face lit up when he saw me, and he came running out to the car, throwing his arms around me the moment I stepped out. "Careful, buddy," Ryan said. "Mommy is still healing." But I did not care about the pain. I held my son as tight as I could, feeling his small body shake with sobs he had been holding in for days. "I missed you so much, Mommy," he said into my shoulder. "It was so awful without you. And Max is gone and Grandma says we cannot get him back and I hate it here. I hate everything." "I know, baby. I know. I am going to fix it. I promise." I meant it. I was going to get Max back if it was the last thing I did. But first, I had to deal with Helen. She was standing in the living room when I walked in, a fake smile plastered on her face, her arms open wide like she expected a hug. "Samantha, thank goodness you are home. We have been taking such good care of things while you were away. Are you hungry? I made soup." I ignored her outstretched arms and walked past her without a word. I needed to see Lucas's room. I needed to see what else had happened while I was gone. What I found made my blood run cold. Lucas's room had been cleaned. Not the kind of cleaning I would do, straightening up and putting things away. This was a purge. Half of his belongings were gone. I stood in the doorway, unable to move, trying to process what I was seeing. The room that had been so full of personality, so full of Lucas, had been stripped of everything that made it his. The walls still had the same paint, the furniture still sat in the same places, but the soul of the room was gone. His comic book collection, the one he had been building since he was 6 years old, painstakingly saving his allowance to buy each new issue. Gone. The shelf where they had been carefully organized, spine by spine, was now empty. He had arranged them chronologically, by series, and could tell you the story of how he acquired each one. The first issue his grandfather had bought him. The rare one he found at a garage sale. The complete set of Spider-Man he had assembled over 2 years of patient collecting. His telescope, the one his grandfather, Ryan's father, had given him before he passed away. The telescope that Lucas treasured more than almost anything, the last physical connection to a grandparent who had actually loved him. Gone. The corner where it had stood on its tripod was empty now, a patch of carpet slightly less worn than the rest, marking where something precious used to be. His box of special rocks and shells, collected from every vacation we had ever taken, each one labeled with the date and place in Lucas's careful handwriting. Gone. He had started that collection when he was 4 years old, picking up his first beach rock because he said it looked like a heart. Every trip after that, he would search for the perfect specimen to add to his box. A quartz crystal from the mountains. A sand dollar from the Gulf. A piece of sea glass polished smooth by the waves. Each one was a memory, a moment frozen in time, a piece of our family history. His old stuffed animals, the ones he did not play with anymore but kept on a shelf in his closet because they reminded him of being little. Gone. Mr. Buttons, the bear Ryan had given him the day he was born. Stripey, the tiger he had carried everywhere for an entire year. Flopsy, the rabbit that had been his comfort object during the sleepless nights after his grandfather died. I walked slowly around the room, taking inventory of everything that was missing. His collection of award ribbons from school science fairs. His drawings from art class, the ones I had framed and hung on his wall. His first pair of baseball cleats, too small for him now, but kept on his closet floor because they reminded him of learning to play catch with his dad. All gone. All of it. I stood in the middle of that stripped-down room, looking at the empty spaces where my son's treasures used to be, and I felt something inside me snap. What happened here? I said, my voice deadly calm. Helen appeared in the doorway behind me. Oh, I did some cleaning while you were away. That room was a disaster, Samantha. Filled with junk and clutter. A child cannot thrive in that kind of environment. I sorted through everything and got rid of the things he did not need anymore. The things he did not need? His comic books. His grandfather's telescope? His rock collection. Old magazines, a broken piece of equipment, and actual rocks, Samantha. Dirty rocks that he had been hoarding for years. I did him a favor. A favor. I turned to face her, and whatever she saw in my eyes made her take a step back. You threw away my son's treasures. Things that cannot be replaced. Things that had meaning and history and value to him. And you call that a favor? I was trying to help. You should be thanking me, not attacking me. I gave up a week of my life to take care of your family while you were in the hospital, and this is the gratitude I get. Where is his grandfather's telescope? Where did you put it? Helen waved her hand dismissively. I donated it to that charity shop on Main Street, along with the stuffed animals and some other things. They were happy to take it all. Donated. She had donated my son's most precious possession, the last gift from his beloved grandfather, to a thrift store like it was worthless garbage. I walked past her without another word and went to find Lucas. He was in the backyard, sitting on the grass in the spot where Max used to lay in the sun. He looked so small, so lost, surrounded by empty space where his best friend should have been. I sat down next to him and put my arm around his shoulders. Hey, buddy. Hey, mommy. I saw your room. I know Grandma threw away some of your things. His face crumpled. She threw away Grandpa's telescope. The one he gave me before he went to heaven. She said it was junk. But it was not junk, Mommy. It was from Grandpa. I know, baby. I know. And she threw away my comics. And my rocks. I had one from when we went to the beach with you and Daddy, remember? The white one with the sparkles. She said it was just a rock, but it was not just a rock. It was from our special trip. I held him while he cried, this child who had lost so much in just 5 days. His dog. His treasures. His sense of security in his own home. And I made another promise. Not just to get Max back, but to make sure this never happened again. That evening, I called the Hendersons. They were a nice couple in their 60s, empty nesters who had been talking about getting a dog for years. When Helen showed up at their door with Max, they had been surprised but delighted. She told them that we were getting rid of the dog because of my surgery, that we could not handle the responsibility anymore, that it would be a favor to everyone if they took him. They had believed her. Why would not they? She was a grandmother helping out while a family was in crisis. She seemed so sincere, so concerned about finding a good home for the dog. I explained the real situation. I told them that Max was my son's best friend, that he had been given away without our knowledge or consent, that Lucas was devastated and heartbroken. I asked as politely as I could if we could have our dog back. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Mrs. Henderson said, "We have already gotten attached to him. And he seems happy here. We bought him new toys and a fancy bed." My heart sank. I understand that. I really do. But this dog has been part of our family for 6 years. My son raised him from a puppy. Please, please give him back. More silence. Then, let me talk to my husband. We will call you tomorrow. I hung up the phone and sat in the dark kitchen, staring at nothing, trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so fast. Ryan found me there an hour later. He sat down across from me, looking tired and defensive. "You have been avoiding me since you got home. I wonder why." "Sam, I know you are upset about Max. But my mother was just trying to help. You were in the hospital, Lucas was a mess, the dog was barking constantly. She made a judgment call. She made a judgment call about our dog. Our family. Our son. She had no right to make that call, Ryan. None. She was trying to make things easier. You have no idea how hard it was here without you. Lucas was crying every night. The dog was going crazy. I was trying to work from home and deal with everything. Mom was just trying to reduce the chaos. By giving away our son's best friend? By throwing away his treasures? By destroying his room while he was at school so he could not even say goodbye to his things? Ryan looked away. I did not know about the room until after. She said she was just organizing. And you believed her? Ryan, your mother has been looking for an excuse to get rid of Max for years. She hates that dog. She hates how much Lucas loves him. This was not about helping our family. This was about her finally getting her way. That is not fair. She is not a villain, Sam. She is my mother. She loves Lucas. Does she? Does she love him? Or does she love the idea of being his grandmother while controlling everything about his life? Ryan did not answer. He just sat there, staring at his hands, unwilling to see what was right in front of him. Your mother threw away the telescope your father gave Lucas, I said quietly. The last gift from your dad before he died. She donated it to a thrift store like it was worthless. Did you know that? His head snapped up. What? Ask her. Ask her what happened to your father's telescope. The one he gave his grandson so Lucas would always remember him. Ask her where it is now." I stood up and left him sitting there. I did not have the energy to fight with my husband about his mother. I needed to save my energy for what was coming next. The Hendersons called the next morning. They had talked about it all night, and they had made a decision. "We will bring Max back," Mrs. Henderson said. "That little boy has been through enough. We cannot keep a dog that belongs to someone else." I cried, actual tears of relief streaming down my face. "Thank you. Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means to us." "Your mother-in-law was very convincing," she said, a note of disapproval in her voice. "She made it sound like you were abandoning the dog. We would never have taken him if we knew the truth." "I know. She can be very convincing when she wants something." An hour later, the Hendersons walked Max over to our house. I had told Lucas to wait in the living room, that I had a surprise for him. When the door opened and Max came bounding in, the look on my son's face was something I will never forget. "Max!" He threw himself at that dog, wrapping his arms around Max's neck, burying his face in golden fur. Max was licking him everywhere, tail wagging so hard his whole body wiggled. They stayed like that for a long time, boy and dog reunited, and I stood there crying while the Hendersons smiled and quietly let themselves out. "Mommy, you got him back," Lucas said, looking up at me with tears streaming down his cheeks. "You got him back. I told you I would. I promised. I love you, Mommy." "I love you too, baby. More than you will ever know." Max was home. But my work was not done. The telescope was harder to recover. I drove to the thrift store on Main Street, the one Helen had mentioned, and explained the situation to the manager. He was sympathetic but not hopeful. "We get a lot of donations every week," he said. "Things get sorted, priced, and put out on the floor pretty quickly. If it was donated 5 days ago, it might already be sold." We searched the store together, aisle by aisle, shelf by shelf. I described the telescope in detail, the old brass body, the wooden tripod, the small engraved plate that said, "To Lucas, love Grandpa." We found it in the back room, in a box of items waiting to be priced. It had not made it to the floor yet. It was scratched and dusty, but intact. Still there. Still waiting to be found. I paid $10 for my own son's telescope and carried it out of that store like it was made of gold. When I got home, I cleaned it carefully and put it back in Lucas's room, in the spot where it had always been. That evening, when the sky was clear, Lucas and I took it outside and looked at the stars together. "Grandpa would be happy that you found it," Lucas said softly. "I think so too, buddy. Do you think he is up there somewhere? Maybe on one of those stars." I looked up at the vast expanse of sky, all those points of light scattered across the darkness. "I think he is watching over you. I think he always will be." The comic books were gone forever. So were the rocks and shells and stuffed animals. Some losses cannot be recovered, no matter how hard you try. But I documented everything. Every item that Helen had thrown away or donated. Every memory she had erased. Every piece of my son's childhood that she had decided was not worth keeping. And then I planned. The family confrontation happened 2 weeks later. I waited until I was fully recovered from surgery, until I had all my strength back, until I was ready to face whatever came next. I spent those 2 weeks preparing. I gathered all my documentation, organized it into a clear timeline, made copies of everything. I wrote out what I wanted to say, practicing in front of the mirror until I could deliver it without crying or losing my composure. This was not going to be an emotional outburst. This was going to be a presentation of facts. I invited the entire family to our house for Sunday dinner. Ryan's siblings and their families. Helen, of course. Everyone gathered around our dining room table, thinking this was just a normal family meal. I made roast chicken and mashed potatoes, Helen's favorite, because I wanted no one to say I had not been hospitable. The meal was tense but civil. Small talk about jobs and kids and the weather. Helen was on her best behavior, probably sensing that something was coming but not knowing what. She kept shooting me looks across the table, trying to read my expression, trying to figure out what I was planning. After dessert, I stood up and asked for everyone's attention. "I want to talk about what happened while I was in the hospital," I said. "I want everyone to hear the truth about how my son was treated while I was unable to protect him." Helen's face went pale. Ryan looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. His sister exchanged glances with her husband, clearly confused about what was happening. I had prepared a folder for each person at the table. Inside was a summary of everything Helen had done, with dates and specific details. There were photos of Lucas's room before and after. There was a list of every item that had been thrown away or donated. There was a statement from the Hendersons about how Helen had misrepresented the situation when she gave them our dog. I told them everything. The dog given away without permission. The room purged of treasures. The telescope donated to a thrift store. The comic books, the rocks, the stuffed animals. Everything my son had lost because one woman decided her judgment was more important than a child's feelings. I had photos. I had before and after pictures of Lucas's room. I had a list of every item that was missing, with descriptions and approximate values. I had documentation that could not be denied. "Lucas is 9 years old," I said, looking around the table at the stunned faces of my husband's family. "He is a child who trusted that the adults in his life would take care of him. And while I was in the hospital, unable to do anything about it, his grandmother threw away his treasures and gave away his dog. His best friend. The dog he has loved since he was 3 years old." The room was silent. Everyone was staring at their folders, reading the documentation, looking at the photos. Ryan's sister had tears in her eyes. His brother was shaking his head in disbelief. "I was trying to help," Helen said, her voice shrill. "No one appreciates anything I do for this family. You gave away a child's pet. You threw away his dead grandfather's telescope. You destroyed his room without his knowledge or consent. That is not helping. That is cruelty." Ryan's sister spoke up. "Mom, is this true? You gave away their dog. It was making too much noise. I could not think with that animal barking constantly. And the room was a disaster. I was doing them a favor. A favor." Ryan's brother shook his head. "Mom, that is not your decision to make. That is their family, their house, their son." One by one, Ryan's siblings expressed their shock and disapproval. They had all experienced Helen's controlling behavior over the years, but this was a new low even for her. Giving away a child's beloved pet? Throwing away treasured possessions? It was indefensible. Helen tried to argue, tried to justify, tried to turn herself into the victim. But nobody was buying it anymore. The evidence was too clear, the damage too obvious. By the end of the evening, something had shifted. Helen was no longer the unquestioned matriarch of the family. She was a woman who had revealed her true character, and no one was willing to make excuses for her anymore. Ryan apologized to me that night, after everyone had left. A real apology, not the defensive justifications he had been offering since I got home from the hospital. "I should have stopped her," he said. "I should have seen what she was doing. I was so focused on getting through each day, on keeping Lucas fed and getting to work on time, that I did not pay attention to the details. And the details were everything. Yes, they were. She is not staying with us anymore. Ever. I already told her." I looked at him, this man I had married so young, this father who had failed to protect our son when it mattered most. "That is a start. But it is not enough. What else can I do? Be present. Pay attention. Be the father Lucas deserves, not just when it is convenient, but all the time. Notice what is happening in your own house. Stand up for your family, even if it means standing against your mother. He nodded slowly. I can do that. I will do that. I promise. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this experience had changed something fundamental in him, that he would be different from now on. But trust, once broken, takes a long time to rebuild. Helen apologized too, eventually. It took her 3 weeks to admit that she had done anything wrong. Her apology was half-hearted and defensive, full of qualifiers and excuses. But it was something. I suppose I overstepped, she said during a tense phone call. I was only trying to help, but I can see that my help was not wanted. It is not about your help being wanted or unwanted, I said. It is about respect. You did not respect our home, our decisions, our son's feelings. You treated our family like a problem to be solved instead of people to be supported. I said I was sorry. What more do you want from me? I want you to understand why what you did was wrong. Not because you got caught, not because the family is upset with you, but because you genuinely understand the harm you caused. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I will try. Trying was not the same as doing. But it was all I was going to get. Things are different now. Helen is still in our lives, but at a careful distance. She does not stay at our house anymore. She does not have unsupervised access to Lucas. She does not get to make decisions about our family without our input and consent. She has been trying, in her own limited way, to repair the relationship with Lucas. She bought him a new comic book collection, not the same issues he had lost, but a start. She came to his school play and sat in the front row and clapped louder than anyone. She asks about Max now, actually asks, and listens when Lucas tells her about the tricks he is teaching the dog. It is not perfect. There are still moments when I see the old Helen peeking through, the controlling, judgmental woman who thinks she knows best. But she is making an effort to hide that part of herself, to be the grandmother Lucas deserves instead of the grandmother she wants to be. Lucas is healing too. He has Max back, and that dog has not left his side since the day we brought him home. They sleep together, eat together, play together. The bond between them is even stronger now, forged in the fire of almost losing each other. When Max first came back, Lucas did not let go of him for hours. He sat on the living room floor with his arms wrapped around Max's neck, crying and laughing at the same time. He kept saying, "You are home. You are really home. I missed you so much." And Max just sat there patiently, letting himself be hugged, occasionally licking the tears off Lucas's face. For the first few weeks, Lucas was afraid to leave Max alone. He would come home from school and run through the front door, calling Max's name, not relaxing until he saw his dog bounding toward him. He started having nightmares about coming home to an empty house, about Max being taken away again, about losing his best friend forever. We worked through it together. We talked about what had happened, let Lucas express his anger and grief and fear. We reassured him that Max was staying, that no one would ever take him away again, that our family was safe. Slowly, the nightmares faded. Slowly, Lucas started trusting again. Slowly, the shadow that had fallen over our home began to lift. He still mourns the things he lost. The rocks and shells from family vacations. The stuffed animals from his babyhood. The original comic books he had collected with such care. Those things cannot be replaced, and he knows it. Sometimes he will mention one of the lost items, casually, in the middle of a conversation. "Remember that rock I found at the beach, Mom? The one with the sparkles? I wish I still had that." Or, "I dreamed about Mr. Buttons last night. He was giving me a hug like he used to when I was little." Those moments break my heart, but I try to reframe them, to help him see that memories cannot be thrown away, that the experiences those objects represented are still part of who he is. But he also knows something more important. He knows that when he was hurt, his mother fought for him. He knows that when his world fell apart, I put it back together piece by piece. He knows that he is loved, fiercely and unconditionally, and that nothing anyone does will ever change that. One evening, a few months after everything happened, Lucas and I were sitting on the back porch watching Max chase fireflies in the yard. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and everything felt peaceful for the first time in a long time.
"Mommy,"
Lucas said.
"Yes, baby."
"Thank you for getting Max back. And for finding Grandpa's telescope. And for being mad at Grandma when she did those bad things." I pulled him close. "I will always fight for you, Lucas. Always. That is what mothers do. Even when you are sick. Even when you are in the hospital. Even then. Especially then." He was quiet for a moment, watching Max bound through the grass, his golden for catching the last light of the day. "I am glad you are my mom," he said. "I am glad you are my son." We sat there together until the stars came out, and then we went inside to set up the telescope. Lucas wanted to find Jupiter. He said Grandpa had told him once that Jupiter was the king of the planets, the biggest and the strongest, watching over all the others. We found it that night, a bright point of light in the eastern sky, and Lucas looked at it through the telescope that his grandfather had given him. "Hi, Grandpa," he whispered. "I miss you. But Mom found your telescope. She did not let Grandma throw it away forever. Mom is pretty brave, like you were." I stood behind him, tears streaming down my face, watching my son talk to the stars. This child who had been through so much, who had lost so much, who had somehow come through it all with his gentle heart intact. Being a mother means many things. It means sleepless nights and endless worry and love so fierce it feels like it might consume you. It means protecting your child from the world, even when the threat comes from inside your own family. It means fighting battles you never expected to fight, standing up to people you thought you could trust, making hard choices with no guarantee of a good outcome. But it also means this: moments of pure, perfect connection. Stargazing with your son on a summer evening. Watching his face light up when he sees something wondrous. Knowing that no matter what happens, you are the one he will remember when he thinks about home and safety and love. That is what makes it all worth it. That is what being a mother really means. Ryan is different now too. He has stepped up in ways I was not sure he was capable of. He takes Lucas to soccer practice and helps with homework and has conversations that go beyond surface-level pleasantries. He stood up to his mother, really stood up to her, and made it clear that our family comes first. We are still rebuilding our trust. Some days are better than others, but we are both committed to making our marriage work, to being the partners and parents we need to be. For Lucas. For each other. For the family we have built together. Max is lying at my feet as I tell this story. He is getting older now, his muzzle starting to gray, but he is still the same sweet dog he has always been. He still waits by the door for Lucas to come home from school. He still sleeps at the foot of Lucas's bed every night. He still loves our son with the unconditional devotion that only dogs can offer. Helen tried to take that away from us. She tried to remove this source of joy from our lives because it did not fit her idea of what our family should be. She failed. And that failure taught me something important. You cannot control how other people behave. You cannot make them see things your way or respect your boundaries or love your child the way you want them to. But you can control your own response. You can document, plan, and act. You can fight for what matters. You can protect the people you love, even when the threat comes from unexpected places. That is what I did. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. If you are reading this and you recognize something familiar in my story, I want you to know that you are not alone. That there are other mothers out there who have faced similar battles, who have had to stand up to family members who crossed lines they should never have crossed. That protecting your child is never wrong, Even when it makes people uncomfortable, even when it disrupts family dynamics, even when it costs you relationships you thought would last forever. Your child is worth fighting for. Your family is worth protecting. And you are stronger than you know. Lucas is 11 now. He still has Max, still has his grandfather's telescope, still has the gentle heart that makes him who he is. He has grown through the hard things that happened, developed resilience and strength that will serve him throughout his life. And he knows, without a doubt, that his mother will always have his back. That is the most important lesson I could ever teach him. Thank you for listening to my journey of discovering what motherhood truly means. I have left 2 more stories on your screen, each from mothers who learned that protecting a child can mean standing alone against those once called family. Choose the one that speaks to you. And if you want to join a community of parents who fight for their children, that notification bell is waiting. Until tomorrow, remember, blood connects us, but a mother's love protects us.